us trying to speak English back. Actually, my wife knew 7 languages,
Wow.
but I only knew Okie and English. Ironically, though, I was able to communicate in most of the countries that I went to, and I can give you some funny stories about that. But on this case, her dress blew up like that. He comes running out and he said, "Oh, just like in Marilyn Monroe. Oh, that's the same thing. Oh, and she's a beauty." And of course, this is French, and he was saying it. He was speaking some French, but mostly English. He was speaking. I can't believe it. It's happened again. And of course, she loved the attention of that.
That's awesome.
So when we got to Italy, it was the same. And believe it or not, even when we went to the Vatican, we were in the Vatican gift shop, and anyway, the young men have no social restraint in flirting, over the top type flirting.
Oh, really?
With total strangers. But this is the Vatican gift shop, and so he was trying to restrain himself, but you could tell he was wanting to say something. He was actually behind the counter, one of the employees, and I looked over at him and I gave him the evil eye, and he found the strength to quit. He didn't have to try to restrain himself anymore. At first it was funny. It becomes obnoxious pretty quickly. Now, Rooster can be a little that way sometimes. Scott tells me he is, but nothing like the Italians in the late 80s.
Really? Wow.
Let's see, X and Y, right? X and Z are aliens. The experiment, I mentioned a little bit to X. That will be the name of our aliens, X and Z. But we'll incorporate your story at a later point for control reasons. But it'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
Well, X and Z. Do you know what the Leaning Tower of Pisa is? Do you know the history behind that?
I've heard of it.
You've heard of it?
I don't know the history of it.
Would you recognize it if you saw a picture of it? Okay. Well, yours truly sat on the leaning side of that. I have a picture somewhere in my files. Leaning side of, and of course, they have closed that to the public now. They don't let the public go up there anymore.
Oh, really?
Well, it might have been that 225 pounds they had on it back in 1989. And I got I tried to, it does lean about 30 degrees.
Okay. Wow.
And it's hard, when you're walking around a round structure, it's hard to get to the right place where it shows the most extreme leaning, and that's what I wanted to do. And it didn't quite work out that way, but you still see me leaning on that, or hanging my feet off. What you do see, instead of my feet hanging straight down, they are going out like this.
Oh.
Because of the angle.
And what causes that?
What caused you want the history of it? Now, first of all, it is in Florence. And Florence, oh my gosh, it's it's got several, it's known for its beauty and architect, and it was one of the great trade centers too. We also purchased a leather wallet there for a gift for a friend from a leather shop that was 1,500 years old.
Wow.
Well, they ought to have it down pretty good by now, making leather wallets. But it's also the home of Michelangelo's David statue.
Mm-hmm.
And you've seen that, right?
Mm-hmm.
How tall do you think David is?
Um,
Is he 6 foot? Is he 5 foot? Is he 7 foot? Is he 8 foot?
7.
I think he's close to about, yeah, I think he's 7, maybe 7.5 feet. He's not twice the size, but he's more than life size. But the stand that he's on, well, first of all, let me explain. I can touch an 8-foot ceiling
mm-hmm.
with a closed fist without getting on my tiptoes, okay? Because I'm 6'4" and have long arms. So I can touch the ceiling easy. In fact, I can even touch it with my fist. I am touching the base of the statue of David like this.
Oh.
So it's nearly 8 feet off the ground off the floor before he begins with his 7.5 feet. So it's a massive structure, massive. And in the same room with him is some of the earlier attempts to bring David out of the stone. You see, when you're carving it and you make a mistake, you have to start over. And so we had several of those that were there. And it looks like a man trying to get out of a rock.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's really cool. That's why they didn't throw him away. Now, and of course, back in the day, and probably even to this day, if you make a mistake like that, well, you just use that stone for
Right.
a smaller project
Mm-hmm.
later. But
How many of those did they have?
it seemed like they had maybe 3 or 4
Uh-huh.
failed attempts,
Mhm.
but they each one of them was like his shoulder and head were coming out, and another one was almost more complete, like maybe he had fallen into some concrete and he was about to, and laying down and maybe trying to get up, but so each one of them slightly different in a different stage of development.
That's interesting. I didn't even know that. I'd love to be able to go. We haven't done any traveling. I'd love to be able to see that.
Well, it's fascinating.
I can imagine. Now, were you there like just for vacationing, or
It was our honeymoon,
was it was honeymooning? That's awesome.
which was a month long. We took, we spent 2 weeks in America because I drove my 1981 Ford pickup,
Mhm.
which wasn't that old then, 87,
Mhm.
to New York, where actually we left it at a friend's house in northern Maryland and caught a ride to New York.
Mhm.
And then we spent 2 weeks in Europe. And when we came back, we took a different route going home. So we took a southern route going to New York and a northern route coming back. So I went through Arkansas, Tennessee, and my wife was driving while I was napping, and we wind up in North Carolina. That wasn't part of the trip, but and then Virginia and West Virginia. So on the way back, we go through Ohio and Indiana and some other states, of course Missouri. So we wound up covering a lot of states, and then in the process of our state travel, I saw the top 10 Civil War battlefield sites. Civil War is one of my great history interests, and I knew quite a bit about them before I went, and then learned even more, actually, being there. And Gettysburg is by far the best, hands down. But Shiloh is probably my second favorite, and that's not that far from here. In fact, it wasn't very far from where I taught at Murray State University in western Kentucky. It's just straight down, almost straight south. It's at the southern end of Tennessee, on the river there, the Tennessee River, I believe it is. But it's a beautiful site, beautiful site. We actually camped there, and I had a camper shell on the back of my pickup, and we could just had a mattress back there, and we could just sleep in that, not have to fix a tent or